So before I get into the actual discussion here, like always, if you want to see more of these who would win matchups just like this for Record of Ragnarok, then make sure you subscribe. I'm trying to do these every Monday and Friday. I've done a few videos like this for a couple of the other fighters already, and there should be a playlist up on the channel with this video as well in case you want to check out the others. But before we start, it's very important that you understand that I am starting the conversation comparing base Heracles versus base Raiden, right? And of course that's just to keep things more in line with how we would ever have gotten this fight in the manga. So I'll start the discussion here with Heracles before using any of the 12 labors, and Raiden before he releases the 100 seals. And later during the video I'll eventually get into all of that. I just want to make it clear to you all now how I'm posing the fight at first based on how it could have went down in the story. And with that out of the way, guys, let's just get into it. We got a lot to talk about here. Alright, so just to keep things fair, I'm not going to imagine them fighting in London, and partially because London was Jack's request for round 4 anyway, so I'd say London just isn't relevant for this matchup. So to keep things simple, let's just say it's the same old arena we got for rounds 1 and 2. Now when it comes to Heracles and Raiden, it's important to remember that we didn't get to see everything they can do, right? I mean, although we saw Heracles activate 4 of the 12 labors, we didn't even see the effects of the 7th one because Jack cut off one of his arms before he could use it in full. So there's really 9 of his labors that we didn't get to see, and while we did get a lot of variety from his fight in round 5, there's still 3 of Raiden's 4 forbidden sumo techniques that we just never saw happen. And this is why I think whether you end up agreeing with me or not by the end of this video, I ultimately think that nobody can call this fight for sure, right? It's just a big question mark because of all the unknown techniques from Heracles and Raiden, but that's the fun of it, at least for me, because even if I'm right, it's always more fun when you're wrong, I think, especially when it comes to battle manga like Ragnarok that keeps you going back to the older fights while we keep getting new ones. So no matter how adamant you are about Raiden winning or Heracles winning, I wouldn't want you to forget about the so many unknown variables because Jack and Shiva are 2 completely different fighters. And when it came to deciding who would win, I really had to look back at actually how long round 4 was and how long round 5 was in total, because what I realized they also have in common is how long they fight at full strength. Now I understand there is a difference between Heracles using as many labors as he can until his tattoos cover him entirely, and Raiden using his muscles more than his body can handle, because it seems like Heracles was guaranteed to die by his tattoos alone the more he relied on the 12 labors. And in Raiden's case it's almost the same thing, but I guess there is a slight difference in the sense that had he won his fight against Shiva, he could have just rested in the medbay like all the other winners do and recover no problem. But had Heracles won against Jack, I would think the area on him where his tattoos grow is permanent even after his fight. But as far as their fight goes, it's essentially the same thing. They're both on a time crunch hoping to finish this as soon as possible, and that's pretty much how I was able to figure out who would win here, because if you look at how long round 5 lasted, it's 11 minutes and 16 seconds. It's the second shortest fight, coming after Adam versus Zeus at 7 minutes and 13 seconds. Now Heracles versus Jack is the longest fight we've gotten at 26 minutes and 57 seconds. In other words, Heracles fought for more than twice as much longer than Raiden did, implying his durability and endurance is objectively just so much more than Raiden's. Now as I said earlier, Jack and Shiva are 2 completely different opponents, right? And you also have to consider that Heracles would be fighting in an open arena here rather than in London, so I can see why maybe you could argue Jack and Shiva are the reason one fight is shorter than the other, but I just think the difference here is so massive. It's pretty much comparing 27 minutes to 11 if we're rounding, but I guess if you really wanted to press me to believe otherwise, then maybe I'll be somewhat convinced, but it feels more logical to assume Heracles was simply able to hold out longer than Raiden. And we can't forget, Shiva ended up becoming Raiden's natural counter by deterring him from coming closer to him by the end of the fight. And of course, even though it didn't do much to discourage Raiden from fighting at close range, again, the fire around Shiva was just straight up melting his muscles away, so it just didn't work out. And in the same way, Brunhild had handpicked Jack for Heracles knowing that he would make it a chess match, so in both fights we saw Heracles and Raiden get outplayed by their opponents. And it's so important that you understand that, because it means we saw Raiden and Heracles fight at their absolute peak. There was no holding back for them, so in other words, we truly did see the best of their durability and endurance. And when it comes to how this would play out in the fight, I can maybe see Raiden initiate the first attack like in round 5, but it's really hard to say for sure, right? I'm sure it doesn't matter who initiates the first move, but if we're going with Raiden just based on the first exchanges to round 4 and 5, it'd probably be Heracles just blocking and looking for his moments with his club. Now, the real test would start when Heracles uses his labors and Raiden fighting after he releases the 100 seals. And because just how durable Heracles is, especially how much more durable he is than Shiva, then I don't see Raiden crushing one of his arms. I mean, I think he proved he's the god of fortitude so many times throughout his fight with Jack, like when he survives getting crushed by the tower after Jack turns it into a divine weapon. And we know Heracles has high pain tolerance, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about his ability to withstand attacks from divine weapons without it leaving lasting and overwhelming damage. So I don't think Raiden would ragdoll him like he did with Shiva. He'd have to realize he would have to use his forbidden techniques if he wants a chance at winning, but before we get to that point, I'm sure Heracles would use one of his divine labors. And again, referencing back to round 4, let's just say he starts with his first labor, Nemean Lion. Now, I think Raiden could hold out if he uses Mayame. He could probably use this same move again actually against the 6th labor as well. And assuming he survives, then I'm sure it's only a matter of time until he uses Yatagarasu here, but this is where it gets complicated because I actually can't get into what other labors or what other techniques besides Yatagarasu they'd be using by now. I'm only referencing back to what we know from their fight, so now the question becomes if Yatagarasu is able to damage Heracles, and I'm gonna go with yes, but I'm not exactly sure how. I'm just giving Raiden the benefit of the doubt here, but I'm sure it's after this point we could see Heracles go into the 12th labor depending on how compromising the damage is. And like we saw in round 5, the recoil from using Yatagarasu on top of Raiden manipulating his muscles throughout his entire body is massive, but we shouldn't forget that that was only within 11 minutes of fighting. And I don't even know if Heracles would be all that damaged 11 minutes into the fight when we know he's tanky enough to go almost 27, so it's hard to really say if Heracles would even feel compelled to use his 12th labor. But just for the sake of discussion, I think even if he does, this would just be the end for Raiden. I think he'd probably go out like he did in round 5 by trying to fight at his maximum potential until his body either gives up or Heracles gives him the final killing blow. So there it is, guys. I think Heracles would have to win the fight. But alright guys, this is going to be the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Like always, whether you agreed or disagreed, please comment down below what your thoughts are. I'm curious to see what everyone else thinks. But before I end the video, I just want to give a very special thanks to the channel's patrons: Iron, Justin, Nix, EXP, Paranormal Beluga, and Jedi Knight 104. Thank you so much for the support, guys. I am extremely grateful. And for anyone wondering, I just recently opened up a Patreon where if you're interested, you can sign up too and get into the monthly Q&A I'll be doing now here on the channel. I should be posting the next one up sometime at the start of October, so from now until the end of September, feel free to consider joining. You'd also be helping me out a lot here in a massive way and get a special shout out like this in every single video. The link will be in the description below, or you could just search it yourself at patreon.com/Izanami. But other than that, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, make sure you subscribe if you want to see more Record of Ragnarok. I'll be doing more here on the channel like always, and yeah, have a great day.